Hey, 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 Tamika here. We are live on this Monday, and today we are going to talk a little bit about mindset. So, as you're hopping on, make sure to say hello, tell me where you're watching from. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tamika, and I teach stay at home moms how to win in life one healthy habit at a time. And I will tell you that your healthy habits start right between your ears, in your head, with what you think, because that becomes what you do, and what you do becomes your future. So, we're going to go ahead and talk today about knowledge. Now, we've all heard the quote probably. Knowledge is power, right? Where it just means that, like, once you learn things, then all of a sudden, like, you can do more. But the truth is, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is where the power truly is. So we all drop that in the chat. Even if you're watching the replay, drop it below. Applied knowledge is power. Okay, so I had kind of a rude awakening, just a slap in the face this weekend, which made me decide to talk about this today. So I was listening to this book by Darren Hardy. It's called The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. And I've been in network marketing almost 9 years now, and I have read a lot of books. And some books I've read more than once, but for the most part, I read a book, I finish it, and then I move on to the next. And Darren really called me out at the end of this book. He said, okay, now I want you to restart this book and listen to it over and over again, at least 6 times before you go to your next book, because there were so many nuggets. I remember I was like screenshotting stuff and like telling my team about things. I was posting on my social media, like all these amazing concepts and ideas and things that were inspiring me and motivating me to want to be better and do better, right? And so then come the end of the book, I'm like, okay, like I'm ready. Here we go. And he says, like, start over, listen again. Okay, take different kinds of notes, download his worksheets and resources, buy the book, listen to the book. And as I'm listening to it, writing in the margins, dog earing, using sticky notes, and just like really, really applying all the things that I learned in the book. And I thought, oh my gosh, how much time have I wasted in the past because I've got done with one thing and I've just moved on to the next? And I was really inspired and motivated for like that next couple of days. But the truth is, I totally forgot everything, right? Like, how many times has that happened to us? Like, we're so excited, we're ready to go, and then within a couple days it's gone. And so if you want to break that habit, you got to start applying the knowledge. And so I have some tips that I'm going to share with you guys, but this is going to help you, like I said, not waste your time. You're reading these books, you're taking classes, you're going to school, you're attending seminars, you're listening to podcasts, you're listening to YouTube videos for a reason, right? So that you can grow and better yourself. But the best thing that you can do is find tools or implementation for what you learned, so that way it really can take you to the next level. Okay, you're not going to level up until you start applying what you learn. And I think about that when it comes to teaching. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I used to be a high school math teacher, still thinking about getting back into it now that my kids are like in school and grown. But for now, I'm a stay-at-home mom. But anyway, so I was a high school math teacher. And I remember going to school for those 4 years to get my degree. And I had to take classes that were all the way from the elementary level all the way to like crazy people math that didn't even make sense. Like, we weren't even using numbers anymore. And we weren't even coming up with like solutions. We were just coming up with like reasoning and ideas. Like, it was just like was so crazy, right? So I took all sorts of kinds of math so that way I would be able to teach high school math. And when it came down to it, when I got into my classroom, I was teaching geometry, which I had taken one geometry class in that 4 years of school, right? And so to apply what I taught there wasn't like, I did the best that I could to apply everything that I learned in school, but the best way that I was able to learn how to teach was to apply it, was to actually do it, was to stand in front of the classroom. And luckily, when you're at that high school level, usually, you've got like 7 class periods. And so I remember I was teaching geometry and I was teaching algebra 2. and I had 3 courses of geometry and I had 4 courses of algebra 2. And I remember the teaching, that first hour, like geometry, and being like, okay, so we get through the lesson, and we ended way, way early, right? Because I was like just trying to rush through everything so we could get it done. And kids got hung up at this part and that part, and maybe they really grasped this concept and they didn't grasp that concept. And then I had a whole bunch of time left over because I didn't plan ahead, right? Or I didn't plan extra because I thought that this would take the whole class period. So then what did I do the second time I taught that next geometry class? I adjusted a little bit. I made sure I took more time on the parts that, the first hour got hung up on, and and then made sure that they got the stuff that was easy, and I changed things up. But by the time I had taught that third time that same lesson, I was so much better, right? And then I could take the lessons and the things that I learned from that day, and then we would apply it into the next day. And eventually, the longer I taught, the better I got. The more flow I had, and the more time management and understanding of the kids' knowledge and my knowledge and how to best present it to them. And so applied knowledge is where the power is. You can learn all the things, but until you implement it into your life in a routine, systematic way, then you're not going to be able to find the success that you ultimately want, right? Okay, so let's go ahead. I got 4 tips for you to help you take what you're learning, whether it's from a book that you're reading or listening to, a class that you're in, or whatever you're doing, okay? So the first one is to pay attention to your habits. So we all do things which, thank goodness, that our brains just do them automatically. Like, we don't even have to think about drinking or chewing and walking at the same time. We don't have to think about tying our shoes, brushing our teeth, doing our hair. Most of the time this stuff like just comes second nature to us, right? And so if we are so used to habit and routine, then it makes it hard to make a shift, okay? And so one thing that you can do is pay attention to your habits and choose to do something different. So whenever I put on my socks, I don't know why, but I always put my right sock on first, my left sock on second. Okay? So one day I can decide to do left and then right. Whenever I brush my teeth, I always start down here at the bottom. I work my way around, then I twist and I go up to the top. Okay? So I can switch up the way that I'm brushing my teeth. I can switch up the way that I'm driving my car. Okay. I've got this certain setting where like my seat is, and maybe this time I raise it a little bit higher, I push it a little farther back. I mean, whatever I need to do. But when you um cause a disruption in your daily habits, it causes your brain to have to think about it and focus. And in doing so, you can recondition yourself to have, like, maybe replace some of those bad habits with good habits, or just really paying attention to the things that you want to think about, okay? Um and do differently. And then make sure that you're doing these things on purpose. So that's really helpful. So when I was going to school, for example, I would have to make sure that I didn't have my phone out, because if I had my phone on my desk and like it lit up when I was in college, immediately like my brain would disconnect from whatever I was learning in the lesson. I would have my attention on my phone, and then I'd come back to the lesson and I'd be lost. So I had to disrupt that pattern by making sure that I kept it in my backpack the whole time. Something else that I had read is that if you chewed a certain flavor of gum, it helped you retain information. And so I made sure I bought that. That kind of disrupt my habits. If you have a hard time remembering things, there are certain smells or oils that you can have in your house or put on your body that can help you remember different things. And so you just want to disrupt your habits. Okay. And then that's how it's going to make you more cognizant of what's going on or help you to create new ones. Okay. Number 2 is practice. Practice what you learn. One of the things that they were talking about in this book was about switching on passion. Okay. So that was like kind of chapter 1, is how to switch on your passion. If what you're doing, you're not passionate about, what are some different ways that you can do it? So how can you adjust how you're doing the things? How can you think about why you're doing the things, thinking about who you're doing them for, and what you're actually doing, like how you're making how you're working your job, something like that, right? And so practicing ways to switch on passion. So we were talking about this on my team call last night about how a lot of people like have really bad anxiety messaging people. And so we broke it down. We said, like, why don't you enjoy talking to people? And so they gave the reasons. Okay, how can we help you to enjoy that? All right, so your challenge this week is to enjoy it by practicing doing it in a way that brings you joy. And so practicing, taking every opportunity to do that. If you're afraid of public speaking, starting out small, and start going live in your stories, start going live on your Facebook page, even volunteering to say a prayer at church, or offering to help out in your kid's classroom, or maybe like you can teach something that you're good at in front of them and then eventually go bigger. So there's so many different opportunities where you can practice what you're learning. And I'm going to talk a little bit more on that when we get to 4. And then number 3 is changing your inner monologue. So we tell ourselves things all the time without even realizing it, that we're hurting ourselves. So whenever we're like, "Oh, I just really suck at drinking water." That's something I say often, right? And I need to change that monologue. Like, I love drinking water. I'm so good at it. It fuels my body, and I easily and effortlessly consume at least 64 ounces of water a day. If I say like, "Oh, I hate talking to people," or "I'm fat," or I'm not good at exercising, I'm not consistent with this. Like, whenever we're saying those things, it's hurting us, and it's not allowing us to apply what we're learning because we're just self-sabotaging. So just be aware of that, your inner monologue, and start changing it. Whenever you catch yourself saying something negative about yourself, automatically change it, flip it to a positive, say delete, 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 and say what you really want to have happen in your life. Okay, don't self-sabotage. We don't need that. There's enough sabotage already in the world. And then the last thing is to set reminders and track your progress. So like I said, I'm reading this book. It has so many good concepts. It's like a 4-hour book. And so how am I supposed to remember everything within this 4 hours that I want to implement, that I want to do differently? And that's only going to happen if I set reminders and apply what I'm learning as I go to make good habits. So it's okay if this book, which like I said was 4 hours, which on a usual time maybe I could listen to that book in a week. It's okay if this book is now going to take me a month to get through, because I want to go slow, one chapter at a time. And as I'm learning about in chapter 1, the 4 different ways to switch on passion, I want to learn how to implement switching on passion in my life. And if I implement that, then I'm automatically going to go to the next level, because I'm not going to have to fight myself on a daily basis to do what I know I need to do to help more people so I can get to where I want to go. And so if you can set reminders in your phone, you can have little reminders that pop up that just remind you how awesome you are, or what you need to do, or maybe affirmations to say, or something to think about. You could put sticky notes around your house. One thing that I loved, I was reading another book by Brendan Burchard, and I didn't write it down, and I thought it was a great idea, but I didn't write it down, so I haven't implemented it. So I need to go back and listen to that book again. But he said that when he walks into a room, he has certain affirmations that he says. And I remember I was listening to that and I was like, this is amazing. Like, I want to walk into a room and be a light and be my best self and make sure that I'm like uplifting everybody that's in the room. Like, I love these affirmations. And since I didn't write it down, obviously I never implemented it. I didn't do it. I love the idea, but didn't level up from it. And so how can I do things differently? I could write down the affirmations on little sticky notes, and I could put them on the light switches of the rooms that I would want to say those affirmations before I walked in the door, right? And then it would become habit. And then I would be able to do it outside of my home when I was walking into other people's home, or walking into events or things like that. And so set reminders, little sticky notes, reminders on your phones, little things to help you, so that way you can really implement what you're learning. Okay. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I'm so glad that you guys were able to watch live, catch the recording. Knowledge isn't power. It's applied knowledge. That's the power. And so quit wasting your time reading all of these books, which, I mean, it is important that you're reading books, that you're listening to podcasts, trying to grow yourself. But now take it a step further. Read it a little bit slower and find ways to apply what you're learning in your life in that moment. So that way you can really, truly level up. All right. Thanks for being here today. We will see you on the next one. Bye.